All right, tonight I'm going to show you testimony from the courtroom from an investigator at the Bay County Sheriff's Office that demonstrates to me that the persecution of attorney Hoot Crawford was the fraud that I suspected it was. I was there. I watched this testimony in the courtroom, and I've been wanting to show it to you. So let me refresh you about the case. I'm going to give you about a 2-minute primer. Now they say primer. A 2-minute summary of what it was about so that when you're watching this testimony, you know what to look for. It's a very big deal. There was a 16-year-old girl in 2022 who was denied, who had her attorney, Hoot Crawford, stripped away from her, arrested by Sheriff Tommy Ford, and then prosecuted by State Attorney Larry Bassford. And then the judge came in from Walton County, Kelvin C. Wells, and said, you're not allowed to question the legality of the shelter order, of the custody order. It's unbelievable. And of course, there will be an appeal on this. There already has been motions filed. There have been motions filed already. And about 2 of the 6 jurors lying during jury selection. They found them lying during jury selection. So the defendant has filed motions to question the jury, motion to dismiss, all kinds of stuff. And Judge Kelvin C. Wells, who is scheduled to sentence attorney Hoot Crawford next month, hasn't even responded to the motions that are a month old. It's unbelievable. And you're going to see inside the courtroom in just a moment. First, let me double check that everything's working properly. I had my equipment turned on and off, and I want to make sure you can hear me. It looks like you can, otherwise you'd be blowing up the chat. Does everything sound okay? Tell me if everything sounds okay. I'm going to thank a sponsor before we get started so I don't interrupt the flow too much. And then we'll get going. I'm going to look at your comments. Are you hearing everything fine?
You want to look good? You want to feel good? Little John's Big and Tall is where it's at. Right across the street from Sky's Pizza Pie, 5700 North Davis Highway. You can find out more online at littlejohnsbigandtall.com. He's also a member of the iTex trading community, where your iTex dollars are welcome. Don't let back pain and neck pain get you down. Find relief at Brown Chiropractic Center on St. Andrews Boulevard in Panama City. Dr. Sherry Brown helps people heal naturally with chiropractic adjustments and deep tissue massage. Call 769-3777.
All right, what I'm going to, thank you for saying it sounds good. What I'm going to analyze for you tonight is something that you will not see on the news. All right, they don't understand this stuff, first of all. It's something I absolutely hate to have to report to you for a lot of reasons. Primarily, though, because it shows that the Bay County Sheriff's Office under Sheriff Ford are not doing what's good for these kids. In this case, a 16-year-old. Here's the story. So in 2022, a 16-year-old girl who was going through tough teenage years had an older brother who lived in another state. The older brother and her were in a fight. The older brother, what she told the police when she was, I'm going to skip through some of the details, not because I'm being evasive, but because I want to explain this to you. And then, I mean, all the facts are out there, but I need to streamline this so we can watch this testimony. So she, the 16-year-old troubled girl in 2022, had a counselor. She was doing therapy. The sheriff's office didn't know that. And she had told the therapist in an online session that her brother, who she was fighting with, had molested her years ago in another state when she was under 10 years old. Okay. Now, it's important to note that according to the depositions, the 16-year-old girl was sexually assaulted by her biological father, who's now in prison, okay, in another state. years ago, but you can imagine the trauma. So, plus being a teenage girl is hard enough. So, fighting with her brother, she tells her counselor that. Then she goes in and tells her parents that she told her counselor that. And she and her friend, who she stayed with often, 16-year-old girls, one with a driver's license, they left the house. And the girl in question, teenage girl in question, was crying and emotional. Somehow they came across a couple of deputies. She was mad at her brother, and she told the deputies this, and she had said she was going to hurt herself. And so she was Baker acted in 2022 for 3 days. The doctor at the place where they go lets her out after 3 days, says she's going to be okay. She's doing okay. She just had a breakdown. So she gets out. It's the doctor's call. She gets out. Mom has several other young kids, okay, in a condo. They live in a condo, a nice condo. And she gets a call that you've got to be here in 40 minutes to pick up your daughter. So she has to find arrangements. She goes to pick up her daughter. It was, I believe, a Monday. And when she gets back to the door, to the front door, there is a sheriff's deputy there waiting for them. The girl is, last thing she needs to see is another authority figure in uniform. The kids were excited that 16-year-old sister was coming home, and mom was going to have to explain everything. And so, but before she could even get through the door, there's a deputy there. So the deputy says, you need to call this number right away. You need to call this number right away. And she said, can I just get my daughter in the house? I just picked her up from the hospital. So I'll come back out and talk to you. Let me just settle everybody in. So mom goes to settle everybody in, and more banging on the front door. I mean, like, you know, the police knock, the popo knock. Is this helping the teenage girl? Is this helping the other kids? Is this helping mom? So mom goes to the door, and there's investigator Trey Fondren. Trey Fondren has an office inside the Children's Advocacy Center. Trey Fondren said, I need to talk to this girl. You know, we need to talk to this girl. Mom is saying, and he, according to the testimony, and mom said that he was banging on the door, yelling at her, telling her she's a bad mom, and he can take the rest of her kids away from her too if she doesn't start cooperating around here. And he's screaming at her. The kids in the house, in the condo can hear. The 16-year-old who just got home, she can hear it. So mom pulls out her cell phone, and investigator Fondren leaves the condo. So investigator Fondren and the Children's Advocacy Center had been telling the Department of Children and Family Services that this girl was in grave danger. Her brother, who is a couple of years older, they said he's coming to town, and he's going to sexually molest her. He threatened to sexually molest her. That's what she said, and then she backtracked, and so on and so forth. So, Department of Children DCF had already not dismissed the case. I don't remember the word they used, but twice they had said, look, doesn't look like there's anything there. We're going to kind of close it out. Well, investigator Fondren with the Bay County Sheriff's Office, he really wanted to talk to this 16-year-old girl. And so he goes out to his car, calls DCF, and says the brother just went inside the premises. Right. DCF says, oh my gosh, we better reopen the case. So they reopen the case because investigator Fondren saw the brother. As soon as he walked out, got in his car, he's watching. Oh, there he is. The grave threat to the girl. So what do you think the Bay County Sheriff's Office did? What do you think investigator Fondren did when he saw the older brother who was a grave threat to molest the 16-year-old girl? Did he go knock on the door? Did he question the guy who was a suspect? The sheriff's office called him a suspect. He didn't do anything. Nothing. He just called DCF because he wanted to reopen the case. He really wanted to talk to the 16-year-old girl. So, after all that trauma, mom decides we better get an attorney because, they want us to go to the Children's Advocacy Center and they want to interrogate our daughter. So they go visit Hoot Crawford, and they decide Hoot Crawford is the right guy. The teenage girl said he was a grandfatherly protector, and she felt safe. And so there was a voluntary interview at the Gulf Coast Children's Advocacy Center on Friday, May 6, 2022. Just days after, 4 or 5 days after, the girl gets released from the hospital and investigator Fondren's chasing her around, yelling and knocking on the door, screaming at her mom like the Cape Fear villain. This girl can't get away from these people. So mom and stepdad, right? Loving stepdad, not the biological father who hurt her, who's in prison in another state. Good, loving stepdad and mom. They go with her attorney. She is a Marsy's Law victim in the state of Florida. She has the right to an attorney every step of the way, even at a voluntary interview. So they all go. When they get to the Children's Advocacy Center, the CPT team, Child Protective Team, they want to talk to her alone. And Investigator Fondren really wants to talk to her alone. And they don't want her attorney advising her. They say that the attorney's interfering with an investigation. But I showed you last week that Investigator Fondren's supervisor, Lieutenant Jeremy Mathis, when he was a witness in the trial, he was asked, did you think that the brother was a threat to the girl? Were you afraid he was going to hurt the girl? And he said no. That's the entire case. Investigator Fondren clearly did not think that the brother was a threat to the girl because he claims he saw the brother go into the premises and he didn't do anything about it except use that as a pretext to call DCF and say, we got to reopen the case so we can interview the girl. We got to interview the girl. Not giving them any time to resettle after coming back from being Baker acted. They didn't know that she had a therapist she was working with. They didn't know any of that. They just wanted the girl. So let's take a look at the testimony of Investigator Trey Fondren, who does have an office inside the Children's Advocacy Center, who was banging on the door, yelling at the mom the moment she gets home with her daughter. The one who says that Attorney Hoot Crawford was not representing her best interests, even though she loved Hoot Crawford, she wanted to be by Hoot Crawford, she had the right to be by Hoot Crawford, but Sheriff Ford and State Attorney Bassford decided we're going to arrest Hoot Crawford, and the bum Kelvin C. Wells, the judge who couldn't stay off Facebook. Okay, so Hoot was charged with, are you ready for this? For interfering with the lawful custody of a child. His client. They told a judge, a local judge, that the 16-year-old girl was in imminent danger at the Children's Advocacy Center with Investigator Fondren and Lieutenant Jeremy Mathis and DCF and the Children's Advocacy Center folks, the CPT, and her attorney and her parents. They told the judge she was in imminent danger. She needed to be taken right away. They are the ones who interfered with the lawful custody of a child. The girl was in no danger. She couldn't have been any safer. And they said, Mathis said in court that he was not afraid that the brother was going to hurt the girl. And Investigator Fondren clearly was not either, because he claims that he magically saw him walk in as soon as he left, the brother. And if he was such a threat, you'd think he'd save the girl. But all he did was call DCF so he could interview the girl. Watch. And the defense attorney is Don Pumphrey. That's who you're going to hear. I have bleeped out the names of the family and the girl and the brother. I have put the words up so that you know who they're talking about. All right, let's get to it.
Investigator Fondren, at the time of this on May 6, 2022, how long have you been in law enforcement?
I've been a police officer since 2018.
And back then, did you have the ability to search and look up suspects?
There's different databases that can be used to identify individuals.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. And so as a trained law enforcement officer, you believe that this is a suspect of doing some bad behavior and possibly a danger, right?
I did believe that, yes.
Okay. And so as a trained police officer, you want to use those databases and resources so you can identify this person, so you'll know who they are, so you can protect the public. Isn't that right?
I do use those databases to identify suspects.
You did so in this case.
I did not look up the databases.
Investigator Fondren, this is a person that you believe is coming to town and could potentially harm a citizen of Bay County. Am I right?
I did believe that, yes.
And yet, you didn't take the time to go back and look and even identify what this person looked like.
I did not use databases to identify.
So tell the members of the jury, what resources do you have if you have a suspect as a law enforcement officer? What resources are at your fingertips to identify someone?
There is a database called David. It's operated by the Florida Highway Administration, and that database shows Florida driver's license and individuals in the state of Florida to be able to identify them by their driver's license photo. Also, we have a report management system within the Bay County Sheriff's Office that provides booking photos.
By the way, maybe it's possible that Investigator Fondren didn't have time to look up who he says was a suspect that was going to hurt the 16-year-old girl, the brother, because the Bay County Sheriff's Office was too busy on their database looking up other suspects like me. You know that they surrounded my home in 2022, in August, but also you can check how many times they run your data. They do an online search through the federal criminal investigation, whatever it is, FCIC, NCIC, FCIC, David, Elvis. And it's amazing how many times I was searched over the past 4 years. That will be something I'm going to pursue more in the lawsuit that's underway. But they're searching me. They suspect that I'm a criminal. And they're not using that to search people they claim are so dangerous they're going to arrest an attorney over. Get them.
That would show individuals who have been booked into the Bay County Jail.
Anything else?
As far as my databases that provide a photo of an individual, I don't have access to those.
Well, how are you going to identify this person who is of such great concern as to harming a citizen of Bay County?
I do not have any intention of interviewing.
No, sir, I didn't ask about an interview. I'm talking about purely as a law enforcement officer, identify this person called.
Okay, before I go any further, some of you are saying Sarah Moon says it's echoing. Is it echoing? Was it just now echoing? If it is, I'm going to try something. No echo. Okay, sounds better. Okay, I'm going to play it because I think it'll be fine here now.
I would use those databases. However, he did not have a Florida driver's license to my knowledge, as he resided in Tennessee.
He actually
and
did.
not reside in Bay County, so he would not have been booked into the Bay County jail.
I'm not getting to that. I'm talking about your resources to identify you believe he was a danger to someone, in this case, right?
I did.
Okay. And as a trained law enforcement officer, you want to identify people that are not just a threat, but a potential threat, don't you?
I would like to identify the person who's a potential threat, yes.
In fact, that's what you're trained to do, isn't it?
I don't know if I've had specific training on that. I would say I can identify people who are suspects in a criminal case.
I apologize. In order to attain the level of investigator, are you not trained on how to identify persons that could be a potential harm or danger to citizens of Bay County?
I cannot think of specific training I've received to identify a suspect.
And approximately how many suspects have you had to identify in your career up to the point of May 6, 2022?
I've worked, I'd say, thousands of cases.
Thousands of cases?
Yes.
And did you have to go through those resources to identify the person?
Not every time, no.
The reality here is you didn't even,
Objection to counsel testifying?
Well, I hadn't heard all the question here.
you didn't even press a button on a computer to try to get anything regarding the individual.
The resources on my computer at that time would not have provided a photo of Gunner Sweeney.
Think about that
How many
answer.
computers in the Bay County Sheriff's Office?
I do not know the answer to that.
Take a guess.
A couple hundred?
A couple of hundred. Are you telling this jury that you didn't have an opportunity or a chance when you took this case over to identify?
No, I'm saying that my computer had that dated driver's license database that provides Florida driver's license photos, and I would have had access to the report management system of the Bay County Sheriff's Office.
You didn't do anything to try to identify who he was, did you?
I did not look for a photo of him at that time, no.
And so this person that you were so concerned about, when you were there, and take you back to when you had contact,
Yeah.
remember that?
When contact at our condominium?
Right.
Yes, sir.
Were you aware at that point whether or not was already getting services that her parents had already set up?
No one had informed me of any services that had been set up.
And did you inquire whether or not they had any services that were being provided?
So notice this part here, right? So he's gonna throw it on the mom. He's gonna throw it on the mom. He's gonna say she just slammed the door in my face. She was just dismissive of my concerns. Remember, the moment she brought her daughter home from being Baker acted by the Bay County Sheriff's Office, well, they gave the parents an opportunity to do it, and I don't have real heartburn over that incident. She said that she might hurt herself, and that's the law in Florida, and the law was carried out. And they were nice enough, the two deputies on scene were nice enough to let the parents bring her there. But when she got home 3 days later, because the doctor said she was fine to go home and be with mom and family, this guy's banging on the door, threatening to take the rest of the kids. He says he never did that. Mom testified under oath that he most certainly did. And the way he's answering questions and the way he claims to deal with somebody he thought was going to hurt the girl, I tend to believe mom.
I tried to have that conversation with at her condominium. She was very dismissive and did not want to engage with me in any conversation.
You need cameras. You need cameras.
She threatened to videotape you?
I do not recall her threatening to videotape me.
Okay. And you don't recall threatening to take her kids and have her arrested if she didn't set up a CPT interview?
I did not threaten to take her kids. I did tell her I'd have to notify DCF and update the report of what has occurred up to this point, and I did not threaten to arrest her.
That update that you made, you updated and told the Department of Children and Families that was the suspect was now back in the residence.
I believed him to be back in the residence.
Watch this.
Well, you don't even know what he looks like, do you?
Based on the information that I had gathered, I did have a reason to believe that was back at that residence.
You told the department that he was actually residing in the same residence as. Did you not?
I did believe for him to be residing in that residence.
This is domestic terrorism. That's how I view this. Domestic terrorism. Give them a time to give mom and the daughter and the kids in the home a moment to breathe, dude. And if you really thought, come on, Trey, if you really thought that the brother was going to go in there and hurt the girl, why didn't you knock on the door? Nobody on planet Earth believes you, not even yourself. And now you're pissed off at me, I'm sure. But this has serious repercussions, man. And by the way, I guess I'll just tell you, there's an active lawsuit against this guy and the Children's Advocacy Center. So they're going to be having to answer some of this stuff. And the lawsuit is, just accusations, right? Until they get to the truth, but sure doesn't paint a pretty picture of this guy. And you've got an appeal coming, and there will probably be 2 more lawsuits that I'll tell you about when the time is right and the mood is proper. So this isn't the last time he's going to be asked these questions under oath.
Yeah, but you didn't know what he looked like, did you?
Objection asked and answered.
Just saying, we've got to cover this, Mr. Puckett.
Investigator Fondren, you would agree that the Department of Children and Families greatly relies on your reporting, do they not?
I would agree that they rely on our reporting, yes.
So do you have the ability to track individuals? Like,
You might clarify that a little bit by track.
once you identify them and locate them, can you track them?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding what you mean by track.
Sure, well, then, I'm sorry, let me break it down. So have you guys ever used cell phone data to find out where an individual is located?
I've not had a case where I've actively tracked someone on a cell phone.
Now, are all the other officers, are they refusing to assist you in this investigation?
I don't recall asking for any assistance at that time.
And after 9/11, isn't it true that even Homeland Security and all federal agencies are willing to help and share information with you as a law enforcement officer, aren't they?
I am not sure on the answer to that question.
You're not aware of the resources available to you?
I have not used Homeland Security to track individuals and share information with them.
Are you familiar with the use of cell phone data and tracking information to locate people and where they're at?
I do know that there is the
I think
ability.
we're beyond the scope of the examination.
No, it's just that.
Investigator Fondren, you talked, is that right?
I talked to only on the phone, yes.
Okay. And they brought voluntarily, by the way, did you tell them this was a voluntary CPT interview?
I believe I told him it was a mandatory referral CPT or something to that effect.
So did you know it was a voluntary?
It's a mandatory per chapter 30.
Okay, this is the game that he's playing here. Let me explain. So if they have reason to believe that a minor has been sexually assaulted, it is mandatory that they refer it, to the Children's Protective Team. That is, I think they're pretty much the rules and regulations, policies and procedures come down from the health department. So what he's doing is trying to confuse the jury. He knows that it's mandatory to report it, to refer it. But he also knows that the actual interview, when the 16-year-old girl showed up with her lawyer, Hoot Crawford, and her mom and dad, when they all showed up to the voluntary, it was not mandatory, it was a voluntary, what they call a forensic interview, okay, with a child protective team member. So he's trying to conflate the two issues. He's trying to act like it was, he's confusing the jury is what he's doing, but he knows what he's doing, and I know what he's doing.
39 in Florida State statute is a mandatory referral to the CPT when there's an allegation of sexual abuse on the child.
And what statute is that?
That's, I believe it's going to be chapter 39.303.
Okay. So you did tell them it was mandatory?
I believe I said it's a mandatory referral to the CPT team.
Okay. And did you later find out that that was incorrect?
It is a mandatory referral to the CPT team.
So you were under the impression this whole time that this was a mandatory referral?
A referral means that information is passed on to the child protective team when a child has disclosed sexual abuse to them.
And in doing so, a mandatory CPT?
It's a referral, a mandatory referral.
Is that the same as a mandatory CPT?
I do not believe it's going to be the same.
At any time did you tell them that talking or going to the CPT exam was voluntary?
I don't recall telling them if it was voluntary again, but the conversation was very short that I had with after she shut the door in my face when I was trying to get the CPT set up.
See how he does
Just the
that?
one time on the phone where he was receptive to getting this CPT interviewing services set up.
After the mom shut the door in my
And was
face.
the CPT exam set up?
It was.
Okay. And you would agree that the child has a right to have an attorney?
So, okay, Sarah Moon says child protective team. So the child protective team is employed. These are special people who know how to ask questions to kids in this trauma. They take a 40-hour course. They are employees, I believe, of the Children's Advocacy Center, but they are trained under the health department, and the policies and procedures come under the health department, which is what the sheriff's office pretended superseded the state constitution. Again, they're conflating all kinds of things. So they are specially trained people that question the kids when they when there's trauma and when they're investigating. That's who CPT is. Different than DCF. Part of the Children's Advocacy Center, overseen by the health department.
A child has a right to an attorney.
Okay. A child at the CAC?
A child has a right to an attorney.
Okay. And you would agree the child has a right to an attorney at all times?
I would agree.
Okay. And so when they appeared at the CAC, was together with?
I did not see them personally. That information was relayed to me that they were there as well.
Did you observe that the were there?
I don't recall observing them when I first got there, but when everybody later left, no call was there.
Now, when you realized that you actually could not identify, did you correct any of the information at DCO?
I still believed and later found out that was visiting the family from Tennessee.
You observed this?
I knew that was coming and was visiting the family at the residence.
And where were they going to have this visitation at?
I'm assuming inside the condominium.
And you say this soon.
Right.
Did you have any evidence or any?
As you listen to this, remember that an attorney was arrested. This 16-year-old girl was stripped of her attorney and taken into custody by this guy, by these people, by the sheriff's office. Now, the sheriff will say, that's not true. We don't have that authority. It was the Department of Children and Family Services. Well, you've seen the video of this guy's supervisor, Lieutenant Mathis, who told Hoot, you need to stop interfering with our investigation on that Friday, May 6, 2022. That's what Lieutenant Jeremy Mathis yelled at the attorney. The girl is a Marsy's Law victim with the right to an attorney every step of the way at a voluntary interview. They arrested him after she invoked her right, threw him in jail, and then they took this girl back and they made her do the interview that same day with the Child Protective Team lady. And they kept her for days. And eventually this guy got his wish. And they all interviewed her like 4 times without her attorney and asked her what she and attorney had talked about. And this judge, Kelvin C. Wells, allowed attorney-client privilege to be used as evidence against the attorney who was arrested after these people snatched her away from her lawful custody by her parents. They were in a safe place, and they all lied to a judge about it. The right to an attorney in the same town where that right was born in 1963. In Gideon versus Wainwright. Look up the case Gideon versus Wainwright. You will not believe it. That's where the right to an attorney started right here in Panama City. And in 2024, Sheriff Tommy Ford and State Attorney Larry Bassford stripped that right away. And they're mad at me for telling you this.
Information where any visitation was going to take place in order to protect.
I was told that I was coming to stay and visit with the family here in Panama City, coming from out of town. I would infer that he was probably staying inside the prison.
He would infer that.
You would infer that probably.
He would infer that probably. That's why they're snatching kids. Here's what I can tell you at this point. You're going to hear a lot more about this, and not from me. From me too, but you're going to hear a lot more about this. This is not the end of this. It's really the beginning of this.
I infer that he was probably staying inside the prison.
You didn't have any direct evidence at all that was around at any time after the allegations on the 28th?
Can you repeat that question one more time for me?
Sure. You had no evidence or information that was around at any time after the disclosure on the 28th?
I was told that I was coming to stay with them for, I believe it was 9 days, for several days.
Were you observing when Ms. Hamilton was talking to just prior to the voluntary CPT interview?
I did not observe that conversation.
When, after Ms. Hamilton and her attorney walked back out, at that point, were you aware that she had declined the voluntary interview?
No one, I was not aware that she had declined the voluntary interview.
They
And you
snatched her
agree
away.
she is a victim?
I would say she was a victim of sexual abuse.
Okay. And did you
Now, I want you to remember this is an important point that I don't think was made very clear in the trial, actually. So how is it that she's a victim of sexual abuse if her brother didn't do it? If there was something that happened when they were under 10 years old in another state. So she is a Marsy's Law victim. All sexual assault minors and adults too are Marsy's Law victims, deserving of dignity and to be heard and to have a right to an attorney and not to be treated like they're the criminal, chased around like they're trying to get away from the Cape Fear villain. So the reason the girl is indeed, without question, a Marsy's Law victim is because, again, and I hate to say this, okay, but you need to know, this part of the story has to be told. Her biological father, according to the documents in the court, did sexually assault her when she was little in another state, and he's in prison, her biological father, not the current loving stepfather, adoptive father. So yes, she is for sure, without a doubt, a victim. And that's the reason why.
Report that to the state of Tennessee.
I did.
And when did you do that?
But he's saying that he thinks the brother did it a long time ago because of what the girl had said when she was upset, fighting with her brother. Okay. So that's what he's talking about here. So she had said that to deputies here. And the question is, did you report this back to Tennessee where the alleged incident happened, crime happened, when they were under 10 years old in another state? Did you report this? And this is his answer. He says yes.
It would have been soon after I typed my investigative narrative, so within days of that being completed.
You say days. I want to make sure you're clear. So you received the information on April 28th?
So he just said within days of finding out, within days, we notified the state of Tennessee so they could investigate and get the villain, get the molester, the older brother that they're claiming. So when did you do? He said within days. So now the defense attorney is saying how many days?
I would have to refer to my report for these exact dates.
Or do you have your report?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you repeat your question for me, please?
Sure. The question is, how many days after the 28th did you take to report it to the state of Tennessee?
I'm going to forward it a bit because he can't find it.
Nashville, I don't have the exact date when it was sent to Nashville. It would be, it's in my email where that email was sent to Tennessee.
You don't have it documented in your report.
I have the documentation on email.
You would agree that allegations of sexual abuse are very serious.
They are very serious.
And you were aware that this was in the jurisdiction of Tennessee and the city of Nashville?
It was determined that the alleged offense that was disclosed happened within Metro Nashville Police Department.
Was it within 10 days that you sent it up to them?
I would have to refer to my email. I don't know the exact date I sent it to them.
You would agree that if you're concerned about an individual and there's a sense of urgency about something, that would be very important to refer to the appropriate law enforcement agency, would it not?
I referred it to the Nashville Police Department, who accepted jurisdiction.
Right, but you would agree that that's pretty timely.
It is important, and that's why it was sent.
But not important enough to document in your case.
It is documented that the report was sent up to them. It doesn't have the exact date of when the report was sent to them.
Possibly 10 days after you received
Judge,
it?
and the witnesses said he's,
Sustained, we've talked about it.
Okay, so that's the end of it. That's the end of the cross-examination. But I wanted you to see this. The entire premise of Hoot Crawford being arrested was that Sheriff Tommy Ford and his investigators, working with the Children's Advocacy Center, which they've really taken over, by the way, is what happened, But they said, and you've seen it. You've seen Lieutenant Mathis. You're just going to let the girl keep getting molested? Hoot, is that what you're going to do? You know, all you're doing is trying to do an end run to so that we don't charge the boy. And if you don't let us talk to that girl without you around, I'll make a phone call to DCF, and we'll get a judge to give us an order to take her into custody, and we'll kick the family out. We'll kick mom and dad out. We'll kick you out, and we can do all that by this afternoon, Hoot. Is that what we need to do? That's how the Bay County Sheriff's Office rolls around here. And they did. With no testimony to a judge, actually. They just all lied to a judge and said the girl was in imminent danger at the Children's Advocacy Center with the Bay County Sheriff's Office, with her parents, with an attorney, with DCF, and with the Child Protective Team. They all lied to the judge and said she was in imminent danger, and they snatched her away, and they took her alone, didn't give her an attorney, and they asked her the most invasive, awful questions you could imagine. And three males, deputies, that guy who's been chasing this 16-year-old girl for a long time, he wanted his time alone to ask her questions. You should have heard what he said in trial. And another investigator by the name of Jake Roberts interviewed her alone. They didn't even get, Sheriff Tommy Ford didn't even think maybe we should have female deputies talk to. By the way, it's against the Children's Advocacy Center got $6 million in 2022 of federal money from the Federal Victims of Crime Act. That contract stipulated that they can't have cops buzzing the halls, scaring the ever-living out of the victims, out of the kids. They're only supposed to be well-trained advocates in that place. It's supposed to be a safe place, not a place where that guy's supervisor, Jeremy Mathis, goes in yelling and screaming and raising his voice, threatening to take people from their parents and kick the parents out, and then doing it. That federal money is on the contingency that they don't commandeer the Children's Advocacy Center, which they've done. And that judge allowed attorney-client privilege information to be used as evidence to claim that Hoot Crawford interfered with an investigation when he was representing his client. Yes, teenagers can have attorneys, and the attorneys are protected under Marcy's law. How else could they defend their clients? But Sheriff Tommy Ford said, and State Attorney, the prosecutor, Larry Bassford, let's do it anyway. We got Judge Wells. He'll say that Hoot Crawford's not allowed to question whether or not she was in lawful custody. She wasn't in lawful custody of the state. She was in lawful custody of her parents, and everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. But who's going to do the right thing in America? Who's going to do the right thing in Bay County, Florida? It remains to be seen. But I'll tell you what, victims of this kind of harassment and abuse and criminal activity and domestic terrorism, they're fed up. You've got deputies leaving the sheriff's office, blowing the whistle with lawsuits. You've got people who have had their rights violated, suing the sheriff's office. And these people are going to be subpoenaed. They're going to have to answer questions. And there is likely to be accountability. But what really shocked me, because see, if the girl really was in danger from her brother, there was part of me going, let me think this through. But when his boss, Lieutenant Jeremy Mathis, said under oath as a witness in the trial to the jury and the judge, when he was asked by the defense attorney, were you afraid the brother was going to hurt the girl? He said, no. And then you saw that Investigator Fondren said that he saw somebody he didn't even know go in there. As soon as mom pulled out the video camera because he was banging on the door, screaming at her, trying to get to the girl, he goes out and calls DCF and opens the case for the third time. They already closed it twice. But he had to up the ante and say, I saw the guy. I saw the threat walk in the home. But he didn't do anything about it. He didn't even look him up on the law enforcement databases that they looked me up on. Just Hoot Crawford is a victim. But the girl's a bigger victim. The girl's been victimized. Everybody who's supposed to protect that girl hurt that girl. And the one man who tried to protect her, they threw him in jail. And they took her back alone. And they took 4 cracks at her individually. 35, 40-year-old men in uniforms. Sheriff Ford couldn't even bring in a female deputy. They're not even supposed to have them in there at all anyway. It's a big deal. Wait till you see how many times the judge was scrolling on Facebook during the trial. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And texting. Who was the judge texting? What was he saying? He couldn't stay off his phone. Now, you'll notice he did stay off his phone during that. And what I've noticed as I've watched the judge in this case is that when the defense attorney is asking tough questions, he pays attention. But when the prosecutors, when they're grilling people, the judge can't stay off Facebook because he's letting them run the show. You won't believe how often he was on Facebook. The judge. He was scrolling Facebook while he was answering objections. Go ahead and restate it. He'd scroll Facebook during the trial. 2 of the 6 jurors lied in order to get on there, and they were big lies. And Judge Wells can't even answer the motions that are a month old. So anyway, this is just getting started. But I wanted you to see that. Make sure if you have anybody watch the first 5 minutes or so where I explain this so you'll know what's going on when you watch that testimony. All right. I've got a lot more for you. Tomorrow's going to be a great show too. Tomorrow's going to be a really good show. I don't want to tell you what I'm going to be talking about, but I'm excited to show it to you. All right. Thank you again to another sponsor.
Hand caught in the cookie jar? Sometimes bad habits continue even into adulthood. I'm El Saline, 850-215-0628. Let me help you.
And of course, to the Unknown Patriot, thank you for your support. All of the sponsors, even the Unknown Patriot, and even which is really just an anonymous sponsor. And you can become an Unknown Patriot too, if you'd like to be Bernie, I can't donate to you because they'll come take my kids. I know. Or they might punch you right in the face. Yeah, good to hear that story. Well, now you're not going to get any sponsors, Bernie. All right. Well, we've got to tell the truth. This stuff's got to get out, don't you think? Also, thank you for throwing a tip in the tip jar. If you're doing that by being a patron, crowdfunding is huge. I couldn't do it without you. $5 a month, as little as $5 a month. I know this is worth $5 a month. There's not a lot of things I know, but I know this is worth $5 a month. So thank you to those of you who become patrons at patreon.com/Bernie Thompson. It's anonymous, it's easy, and you can quit at any time. All right. Thank you so much for being with me. Tomorrow's going to be a good one too. And I'll see you then.